This is the Jim and Terry Show, coming to you from sunny downtown Bob Cage, and I'm one of your hosts, Terry.
And I'm Jim. I am not a native of Bob Cajun. I am a native of Pefferlaw, from the mighty men of Pefferlaw. You don't want to get us on your wrong side. We're so powerful.
I have a roll of duct tape ready for you, Jim.
Okay, it's one of those days.
This is not going to be threatening.
Yeah.
This is mildly intimidating. It's not duct tape, it's Gorilla Tape.
Well, Terry, did you hear?
Did you hear? Well, let's start off with what you did hear. You wanted to start this with something, and I had no idea.
No, I was just going to say about we kind of got messed up technology-wise, and so thus we're almost kind of starting over with this show. And
people may not have found us. So if you're listening to us, you obviously found us.
Yeah, and so this
spread the word
is for nothing.
Send a link. That's a link, not a leak. Yeah. Speaking of leaks, is that why I have my duct tape? I heard North Pipeline might be able to use some duct tape.
Well, I mean, obviously the Russian Navy did that.
Is it another special op?
Well, yeah. What it is of course they want to put pressure on the Western nations, about supplying Ukraine with modern equipment. So as these talks go on between the president and Putin, President of the United States and Putin and other NATO nations, with Putin, Putin's threatening nuclear war. United States is saying it's going to be unbelievably bad for you if you do this. We're going to retaliate. So one of the ways to keep the West on their guard is Putin sabotaging his own gas line, supplying Germany and Finland and a lot of those other countries with natural gas. They just blew them up in the is it the Baltic Sea?
Yep. Baltic Sea.
Yeah, they blew them up there in order to say to them, you depend on us. And I think that too will backfire.
So I have a question. Not one, not two, but 4 leaks are now established. 4. So how much is enough? Like, you want to make a point, blow it up once. Twice? 4 times? How much is enough?
Well, that's kind of weird. So maybe it isn't Russia at all doing this. Maybe it's someone completely different.
I'm not too sure. I would go. I was hearing a broadcast by a military advisor who said Occam's razor is usually the way to examine some of these issues. Occam's razor is the philosophy that the simplest explanation is most often the real explanation. So let's not complicate things and look at other things. Unless you wanted to invite space aliens into the discussion, let's talk about the likelihood that Russia is sending a message, and the message is about Europe's energy dependency on Russia.
Yeah, and of course we got to figure out a way to end that for sure. Nuclear power plants are probably the best way in order to do that, and I wish they'd get on with it because I think it's Germany that decided they didn't want to go that route, and now they're in deep trouble, depending on a nation like Russia. But you're right when you said, going back to that wonderful fancy word of just look at the simplest. Russian ships were seen in the area, and I don't know if Russia at this point has denied doing anything. So if they haven't denied it, Russian ships are seen. They've done it. They've done it probably.
Interesting. You think in the day and age of satellite everywhere, I mean, Musk must have thousands of satellites. Not all of them are going to be used to transmit the internet. Some of them will be used for surveillance, I'm sure. But in this day and age, surface ships, you can see them literally a mile away.
Well, maybe they have to wait for certain information to come in. I don't know.
I'm wondering,
you're
absolutely
submarines.
Right. Why aren't submersibles? You wouldn't be able to detect those from satellite imagery, would you?
Well, I guess you could torpedo them, but that would show great evidence that you've done that. Yeah. Of course, you can also launch scuba divers from a submarine under the water.
What depth are these pipes on the Baltic Sea?
I'm assuming they're on the bottom.
Are they all? Yeah, but
I have no idea.
Too deep for divers, or can you dive that deep? I guess you can in big suits.
I don't know, but as far as Russia's concerned, isn't that sort of cutting off your nose in spite of your face?
Yeah, like once the pipeline is destroyed. By the way, the gas is just erupting from
Well,
the pipe. So do they
has
not,
Russia not shut the thing
That's what
off?
I'm wondering. Or maybe it's a plot to blow it all up. That gas bubbles up to the surface, light a match. What will happen? I don't know. I wish I was a scientist so I could understand what the repercussions. What about the environmental impact of these 4 leaks?
Well, I think that's something to definitely look at. I don't know what that does to the fishies. I don't know if it comes to the surface and dissipates.
Yeah.
It's natural gas. I don't know. Yeah. I think the bigger concern, in my opinion, and that's a huge concern, but the bigger one is we had a few shows back, I said to you 3 things that I said are going to happen. 1 is there will be nuclear exchange. 2 is Trump will leave the nation and seek asylum somewhere else. And 3 is there will be military in the streets of the United States. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying I got a message from God.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that relates to the Nord Stream pipeline being sabotaged in 4 places.
Oh, because what I was saying before I went off on my own rabbit trail was that the threat that Putin's going to use nuclear weapons should his country be invaded. And now like I've done, they've done the sham referendum that made the annexed
the
parts
4 territories
are now Soviet motherland, which means any bombs that go into the Soviet motherland, they can use and say, well, you attacked us, and use nuclear weaponry.
And I understand Anthony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, has been in dialogue with his corresponding channels in the Russian Federation that any move in that direction would be catastrophic for
That's
everybody.
what they've said. There are huge bombs that are not nuclear, but they can use other means that are not nuclear.
Just as catastrophic, but not nuclear.
Not poisonous to the air and everything
for everybody
else,
and everything like Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Which is funny because that's one of the places where the Russian troops attacked in their first few months of the war.
The demise of their own people.
Yeah.
I mean, those troops, and now Russia is now conscripted. They say 300,000, but the Russian people are thinking it's more like 1 million.
Yeah.
And he's throwing these poor saps into a battle with inadequate equipment and way inadequate training. I mean, the training that North American troops go through is just, number 1, it's endless. Number 2, it's really intensive in order to be able to do what you need to do to survive and coordinate. To just take a guy that doesn't want to fight, throw him in on the front lines is no better than what the leaders of Iran did when they were fighting Iraq, and they sent the little kids with sticks into the battlefield.
Yep.
That's just nuts.
That's what we call cannon fodder. People as cannon fodder. You're an expendable resource.
Yeah. So no wonder the Russian people, men, are trying to leave the country in hundreds of thousands trying to leave.
Well, last
Russia.
week we showed some images. I showed you. I sent you links to the cars lined up on every border to get out of Russia to every adjoining country.
Yeah. Miles long. Trying to get out. And Finland, I think, had to shut its borders.
Yeah.
So we can't take
manage.
you in.
Yeah.
And now we find out that even the Russian authorities are grabbing people trying to get into other countries and just taking them right to the military.
I'm not sure that I would be taking a highway out of Russia. I think I would be trying to get as far as you can, as close as you can, and then get out of your car and leave it and go somewhere and start hiking.
I saw the border of Georgia and Russia, and there was a lot of people walking.
So they're still on the roads though.
Oh yeah, the roads are jammed.
Yeah, so I'd get off the road and start hiking through. Just get a compass and follow your directions.
Imagine having to do that. Just a year ago, you had comfort.
Yes,
and you were almost like a part of the earth,
now,
like the other people who live there. Now all this is upon you.
To what extent is Ukraine and Zelensky using this now? Can they use it in a way to end this thing? I heard that, for instance, Zelensky is now making appeals directly to Russian soldiers. Contact our embassy, turn yourself in. We will take you prisoner.
Yeah, I think there's even websites, how to surrender.
How to surrender.
And
does it require you to break your arm or your leg?
No, yeah. Because they had websites, very popular websites on how to break your arm or leg to avoid being. But I mean, right now, the way I can see them putting the Russian authorities putting a bullet in your head if you show up with a broken arm.
So where does it end? Last week I speculated that it will end when Putin is removed, when Navalny is released from prison, and Navalny is the only person of credible character to negotiate with Zelensky. I also think that it will not end until all lands, including Crimea, and the 4 provinces are returned to Ukraine.
You may be right.
We shall see. Here's hoping for a sooner than later ending to that. My heart still breaks and I have to wince every time I see a video that shows anybody being killed in battle. Needless. Totally needless. The Jim and Terry Show. All things needless.